The Boston Celtics is the letter B. It goes from A to B. There's no other major city in the United States that starts with the letter A. So it brings us to B, Boston. I would be lying if I said I was a Celtics fan. I like watching their team, but I don't love what they've been. Okay, I'm beating around the bush. I don't like the Celtics because I don't really love Jayson Tatum. And that's just my personal take. We're going to get more into that later. But I think Jayson Tatum is a little bit more of a ball hog, and I think Jaylen Brown is a little bit better than him. And that's a crazy take because you never see fucking Jaylen Brown's dropping 50 in a game. But I don't think that they can win with Jayson Tatum at the helm. But yeah, he's too good to give up. So let's get into the head coach. I would also be lying if I said I knew how to pronounce his name. But luckily we live in the modern age of the internet where you have access to Google. So
Ime Udoka.
Ime Udoka. Their new coach, pretty handsome gentleman, I will say so. Hired after Brad Stevens, also a pretty handsome gentleman. And I think that that's their kind of shtick. They were just like, oh, we got the white handsome gentleman, and now we're going to get the black dude who's a handsome gentleman, which is a perfect transition in today's modern society. It was known that the Boston Celtics wanted black leadership on their team, that Brad Stevens wasn't really working out, but Danny Ainge didn't want to give him up. So he promoted Brad Stevens and then put Ime Udoka into that role of head coach. Stevens ensured that the role would be filled by somebody that he trusted, that he thought would be good for the position, and that would be good for the Celtics' future. And I think they made the right choice. Now, Ime has been around the NBA for years. He's been talked about in terms of becoming a head coach in like every single year that I can remember. I mean, not every single year, but like in the past 2 years, people have spoken about how does this guy not land a role as a head coach? And if I'm being honest, I have no answers for it. We're coming off of last year, and that was a good showcase by Brad Stevens where he knows how to maximize talent so well. And I say that with all the sincerity in my heart as somebody who's enjoyed watching his teams in Butler, Gordon Hayward, and all that stuff. I mean, he was a great coach, and he's going to be pretty missed in terms of NBA fandom. Like, a player development coach that knows how to excel literally everybody on the team is crazy. The fact that they haven't gotten any further than they have is a sucky situation. Brad Stevens was definitely one of the best college coaches to be transitioned into the NBA, and that doesn't happen often. A lot of coaches that come from the college level do not do as good in the NBA. But now we're going forward as a franchise. I don't have a lot to say. Ime is going to do a great job, I think, because he has a great team with him, and they're really banking on their talent, and they're in a spot where some of their players are too good to trade because you're not going to get the same value out of them if you traded them away. So the question is this year is, how are you going to handle all of this craziness? How are you going to use Enes Kanter, a rebounding god? Look, maybe if they're just not injured, maybe if Jaylen Brown doesn't get injured and Jayson Tatum doesn't get injured, I mean, it's all the NBA is these days. You're just hoping that somebody doesn't get injured. I mean, I'm not saying that they're a championship caliber team, but can Ime use magic powers or crystal ball to make sure that his players don't get injured at the wrong time like they did last year, like they always do? That brings me to transition into Robert Williams. Robert Williams is that first player that we should talk about because Robert Williams is a great player. Robert Williams will be very good in the future. He has a lot of hustle. He's smart. When he plays basketball, he just knows exactly what to do. And he's a big body. In the previous video, I talked about how Clint Capella plays such a big role, even though you won't really notice his impact in the stat sheet, despite the fact that he drops 20-20s. But I don't think Robert Williams is capable, and this is Robert Williams, the third we're talking about. I don't think Robert Williams is as capable as Clint Capella, in terms of making an impact on the game. But I do think Robert Williams is a effective and very intelligent player that I have nothing but praise for. And I think that was one of the best drafting decisions that they could have made, sort of like a low-key decision where somehow they found this gem. Or where did he go? I got to figure out where Robert Williams went. He went to Texas A&M. Robert Williams went to Texas A&M, so I guess he wasn't some well-kept secret. But I will say that he has blossomed into a player that nobody suspected. And in terms of use in the future, he needs to get a little bit better at passing. He needs to get a little bit better at sort of finding his direct role instead of being like a little bit of energy. He needs to score on every 5 possessions, maybe. That's a crazy take. But he needs to be able to be a part of the offense a little bit more. Instead of getting, 10 and 8 every single game, he should be striving to get that 15 mark. Now, these aren't the players to watch. Robert Williams is still the player to watch, but maybe I can talk about how they're the player to watch later. With Enes Kanter and Al Horford additions, I think it'll be very good because Robert Williams is a little bit undersized. Robert Williams is about 6'8", and I'm sure that he's growing at least a little smidge, but he plays more like a 4 than he does any other position. And Al is similar in that aspect, in that he's not technically undersized, but he technically is not very athletic, where Robert Williams probably gets a little bit more in the athleticism department, but he's not going to have that forever. He's young only now. He's going to be in this league for a really long time. He has to learn from players like Al Horford, which that's why it was a really good decision on the part of Brad Stevens to bring back Al Horford. Not that he's going to be a player to watch, but he's going to be a player that will help develop the talent on the team. He's intelligent, and that's why Enes Kanter is there. Enes Kanter is also a little bit undersized, so maybe they will be able to show Robert Williams how to use his body better to go into the future and be a more effective player. That being said, I guess the next player to watch is Jaylen Brown, coming off of a meniscus injury, maybe? It's hard to keep track these days. Coming off a meniscus injury? He is a great player, I think. That's a player to watch. Certified player to watch. Jaylen Brown. Now, that's not a hot take. He's an intelligent man. I focus too much on the players themselves because I think that Jaylen Brown's a wonderful person and he's a great face for the Boston Celtics, forward-facing person. And they have a different team from last year. And I think it's a team that can make him be a little bit more effective rather than just passing the ball to Jayson Tatum. 2 dribbles in, step back, fade away. And you know what? It goes in. I won't deny it, but it won't go in as much as the other team makes baskets. But they do that every single time. Oh, well, Robert Williams just put the back dunk in. Oh, wow. That's when you miss Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum's got to stop shooting the ball and being a more effective teammate. I know he's developed so much, and he played great in the Olympics. But did he even play that great? I mean, I'm critical of Jayson Tatum. My player to not watch, my player to pass the ball is Jayson Tatum. It's a bad take, I know, but I'm going to continue with that take. But Jaylen Brown is a great person and a great athlete and a great player. And I think that he is one of those players that make everybody on the court better. And all he needs to do is really stay healthy in order for the Celtics to be a overall good team. I mean, he really rounds out any position. He doesn't round out any position. Jaylen Brown can play the 2, the 3, even the 4 if you really felt like it, even though Jayson will be in that role. But the 2 and 3 role, and he can play it like a chameleon. He can play the pass first. He can play it as a 3-point shooter and space the floor. He can play the spot-up shot. I mean, there's so many options to do with him. And that's a player that is imperative in order to make your team go to the next level. And then I guess the last player to watch, we got Jayson Tatum. That doesn't count. Marcus Smart. They gave him a big contract. They signed him to his maximum contract. And that's a controversial decision, although I think it's a no-brainer. If I was Brad Stevens, if I was Danny Ainge, if I was Ime Udoka, I can't pronounce it. There's no way I'll be able to ever pronounce it. I have to know him personally, you know what I mean? Once you know somebody personally, then you know their name. So if you're looking to hire anybody, Boston Celtics, please hit my line. But that being said, I think that Marcus Smart is an amazing player. Marcus Smart is everything that you'd want out of a player in terms of being a point guard. He kind of has the tenacity of like a Bruce Bowen type or like a Tony Allen, despite also having an offensive game now. And that's been a big question mark his whole career, is does he have the offense to make up for his defense? And in the past, he doesn't. But this past year, he was shooting pretty much lights out from the three-point range. I think he kind of died out towards the end of the season, but coming into that season fresh, he was very good at shooting threes. He was very good at spacing the floor. He was not a liability on the court. And that's really important for the Celtics going forward. I mean, he knows how to make plays. He is a great passer. He has great court vision. He pushes the offense, and he pushes the ball a lot, which is awesome. He's an energy guy. But does he have the power to be an all-star? Does he have the ability to be as good as an offensive threat as Kemba Walker? Which I think that's why they brought him in. I think the Celtics just low-key bring people in, and they're just like, you know, you can like give some of these players your advice like about stuff. They usually do a good job with it too. That being said, let's move on to the predictions side of things. For the Boston Celtics, the prediction is if they're healthy. Look, with this team, with Dennis Schroeder and Marcus Smart now being big man money bags, Jaylen Brown potentially not injured, you're going to look at another team that's going to be a threat in the East. I mean, two teams already in, and they're two very good East teams. The Boston Celtics have potential to be in that conference finals. Like, if they're healthy, this team should make it far. They're not championship caliber per se. I mean, look, if everything goes right, at best, they lose in 6 in the Eastern Conference Finals. But I suspect that they'll be around that 50, maybe 45 win area. Maybe I'm being a little bit too conservative, but there's only so many games that you can win. With a new coach, they have a lot of optimism going around the organization. And they should be a good team this year. I really hope Marcus Smart lives up to the contract. I really hope that Jayson Tatum stops shooting the ball as much as he does.